Say what's up as you come in. Say what's up. Happy Tuesday, y'all. It's Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? I'm telling you, every single time I work from home, it's like I miss a day. Like, it's crazy. And it's not like I didn't work, but I'm home. So it just, I don't know, it's weird. When you go in the office and it's a little weird. I'm like, what day is it? I was about to be like, happy Wednesday, y'all. I'm like, no, not Wednesday. We just started. You were just home Monday working. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, it's Tuesday. Say what's up in the chat as you come in. Tell me where you watching from. Tell me how your Tuesday's going. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our regularly scheduled program. As soon as I find my mouse. Why did I move it? I moved it somewhere. Yo, welcome to the live stream, guys. Say what's up. Say what's up. Say where you watching from. Oh, I'm like, oh, I must have put it cleaning the floor. I'm like, when I was cleaning my desk off, I'm like, why am I missing? Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Give me a minute to pull this up for you guys. Everything that we're gonna be taking a look at today. So as you come in and chat, say what's up, say where you watching from. Man, we got a good menu today, guys. I mean, we normally have a good menu, but got a pretty decent menu today. Looking forward to it. Some of them kind of long, not gonna lie, but even though they're long, they're useful and they are informative. So that means we have to watch them. Chuck Schumer on CBS was rather interesting. I don't know if you guys were able to catch that. Happy Tuesday, y'all. Say what's up in the chat as you come in. Say what's up. Say where you're watching from. Yeah, I'm just gonna unmute this. Hopefully nothing plays in the background. But I'll double check. It's fine. It's Tuesday, y'all. It's Tuesday. And it's only Tuesday. But I'm cool with that. How's y'all Tuesday going so far? Mine's is going great. You know, at first, when people at work met me, it used to drive them crazy when I would say things like that. Like every time they would ask me how I was doing, I'd be like, I'm doing great. And then I literally had one of my bosses asked me, like, are you always doing great? And I was like, of course I'm always doing great. That's its choice. Like, I'm like, you think happiness is a feeling? It's not. Yo, guys, hit that like button for me. We're getting ready to react to all of the news going on in the world today. Hit that like button for me. Say what's up. Say where you watching from. We're getting set up here right now. So yeah, my boss would always ask me that. My boss would be like, are you always happy? And I would be like, I'm not always happy, but I'm always great because that's a choice, right? Well, how could that be a choice? OMF Google, what's up? Shannon Briggs, how you doing? Cooks, let's go champ. What's up, Cooks? How you doing? Family channel, hi, how you doing? Thanks for stopping by. Geraldine, what's up? Say what's up in the chat, guys. Thank you for saying hi. Hit that like button for me. I'm setting up for you guys right now. Listen, at the end of every live stream, I end my live stream with a Christian clip. Yes, I know all of you guys are not Christians, no, that's not going to stop me from ending with a Christian clip. So I've had people ask me that, and they wonder sometimes, like, hey, how do you feel about your subscribers that don't really like Christian clips? I'm like, well, they either can leave the live chat by the time I get to that point, or eventually they'll find Jesus. One of the two is going to happen. And I'm okay with whichever one takes place. You know, I'm not an easily offended person. So it's whichever one takes place. So did you guys see the internet go crazy over Joe Rogan liking a song about Jesus? I talked about that yesterday, and I was like, dude, anytime Joe Rogan does anything, even referring a little bit to Jesus, the internet goes crazy. Now this clip that I got today from Cliff, you guys are gonna enjoy it. We got people who it's literally illegal for them to just say the name Jesus. So this is gonna be interesting. Sometimes we don't appreciate in America just how free we are. I've had the privilege of traveling to other countries, serving in the Marine Corps. So I know that the freedom that we experience in America, everyone just doesn't get the opportunity. And honestly, we take it for granted over here. I've said that a lot in my travels. I've told people that we definitely take our freedom for granted. Certain things that we do over here are literally punishable by death in other places. Like we see the death penalty sometimes for the most extreme things. In other countries, let's just say people die for much less. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the live, guys. It's Tuesday, March 15th, 2025 on a Tuesday. We are live. So let me walk you guys through the menu. As always, first up, we got an interview with Border Czar Tom Holman. So Tom Holman was interviewed by Stephen A. Smith. I thought that was extremely interesting. I was like, wow. So Stephen A. Smith got the Border Czar on there. I'm telling you, even if he feels unqualified to be the next presidential candidate of the United States, if he keeps going in this direction, he's likely to be considered serious. You hear that, Stephen? I don't know if you're listening, Stephen A. Smith, but you're likely to be considered serious with some of the things that you're doing. Everybody might not like it, but the Democrats do not have a strong voice right now, so I'm just saying. It's a strong probability. We do see President Trump. So, hey, nobody thought President Trump would be president, and he's there, right? Next, CBS News captured Chuck Schumer on Democrats' future, Senate leadership, Israeli strikes, and more. In case you guys are unaware, Israel launched a couple strikes against Gaza. I think it was overnight. Netanyahu is actually live right now speaking, and I was actually going to live stream that before I even jumped on here, but right now he's speaking not in the English language, so a lot of you guys probably would not enjoy that. Family Channel, what's up? Thanks for stopping by. Do me a favor, hit that like button for me. What's up to Family Channel? W chat, yo. You guys in the chat are always looking out. And then we're going to shift gears and go over actually to Bill Maher. And I like Bill. We like Bill on this channel. I say that if I think that the person has a very fair analysis. And I believe that about Bill Maher. Everybody doesn't, it depends. If you're not very liberal, you might not like Bill Maher. I like Bill Maher. I really think that, honestly, it's the comical side of him. The political side, he's always been very liberal, and that doesn't bother me because for some time, I was liberal and leaned on the Democratic side as well. But most of all, what I like nowadays is that I've seen him have a broader perspective. So just so you know, Bill, I appreciate that, because when guys like Bill Maher open up and they can even start to see the problems within their own party, this is where I think we're making progress at. So we're going to see what Bill Maher has to say. He actually had an interview with, I believe it might have been a politician. It might have been. If not, it was someone we recently saw on TV on the live who was on the news. It might have been someone from the Board of Education. She seems like that's where she's from, and he's talking to her. And he tells her that the Democrats need a messaging czar. I thought that was hilarious. Like, I literally thought that was hilarious. A messaging czar. So he says, you guys are struggling right now. We're getting your message out to the people, so you guys kind of need that. And she says, well, you would be a good choice. And Bill literally respectfully declines. Now, I don't know what to say about the Democrats at this point. If Bill Maher respectfully declines to be your voice, I mean, come on. Like, at that point, you should know that you're struggling. And then last but not least, our final clip of the live will be by Cliff Buell today. He will be talking about they don't allow them to say Jesus. So we are looking at a group of people who literally where they are located at, it's illegal for them to even say the name Jesus. Cliff did a great job at capturing that. He captures Christian content in the form of YouTube shorts, and I greatly appreciate him. And that's how we always end our live. So with that being said, guys, welcome to Cozy Corner TV. I am your host, Kieran Smith. Call me Q. And we are on the corner. We're on the corner. Welcome, guys. Welcome to Tuesday Live. I appreciate you stopping by, hitting that like button for me. First on the menu, ladies and gentlemen, we have Stephen A. Smith. Now, great sports commentator. Some people don't like him politically. I personally have enjoyed watching Stephen's growth throughout the years when it comes to politics. He's been a lot more vocal, and he makes sense when he's vocal. He's not just out there talking about whatever and not knowing politicians' names and people that he refers to. Now, a lot of people have said that he does race bait. I can't really say that he does or he doesn't. I have heard it, and I've heard him have conversations without it. So I can understand the people who don't appreciate it, because when he has conversations where I guess he's not race baiting, he sounds pretty decent. I'm not going to say this is the sad part, because if the man has studied up and done what he needs to do and done his research, it makes sense that he would sound a little bit more decent and a little bit more knowledgeable than he has in the past years. With that being said, he himself has went on the record to say the Democratic Party is just in such a bad position right now that that's why he's being looked at for a presidential candidate in 2028. Now, I think he sold himself a little short here by saying he's not qualified. We see President Trump, and I'm not saying President Trump is not qualified, but what I'm saying is Victor Hansen did a great job at covering this. President Trump has kind of paved the way now where it's not impossible for America to look at someone who's not a born and bred politician and say, yeah, we choose that guy. Like, he's kind of done that. He's not the first president to do this. There's been other presidents that did not come from a heavy political background, Jimmy Carter being one of them. But President Trump, and especially with, millennials, Gen Z, he's really kind of shown this younger generation that, hey, you don't have to go for the, let's just say, average politician, right? So now when you're starting to throw people in there that kind of resonate with people, they make sense, they can connect with people, they start to actually get looked at pretty seriously. This is why I say if Stephen A. Smith stays on the path he's on, 2028 is still a little bit of ways away, he might actually start to be taken a little bit seriously. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump right in, and we're going to have a little look-see at his interview with Tom Holman. Now, I appreciated this interview. I thought Stephen A. Smith asked good questions, and so did Tom Holman. So I appreciated that. I think that he asked questions that require somebody to really not necessarily think deep, but at least take a double take. At least people who look like, let's say, me and Stephen A. Smith. And he asked him this question, which I thought was hilarious, because Tom Holman goes, you're the first person that's asked me that question. And Stephen A. Smith asked him question about our former President Joe Biden. And really simple question again that I said I don't think you really have to think hard about for it to come to you. But yet, Tom Holman goes on record to say, you're the first person to actually ask me that. And then he actually goes on record to answer why he thinks what happened. So, again, for people who are not very closely associated with politics, and I have said this numerous amounts of times on my channel, African American people, Hispanic people, my family's mixed. I am a mixed person. I want people that look like me to understand news, to understand politics, to be informed, to know what the Constitution says. Like, things like that actually do matter to me. So this is part of the reason why I'm existing in this space in the season that I am now. I did not always have that answer because the Lord would not give it to me, even though I kept asking. But eventually he did, and it makes a lot of sense to me. I hate to see anybody, but mostly people right, who look like me, just be totally uninformed and go to the polls and just vote a certain way because they just want to vote and have no idea who they're voting for, anything about that person's past. And really, I just feel bad when I see it. I feel bad because I know politics can be a scary thing. For some, it can be a heavy thing. But there already are people out there that are doing the work for you. You just kind of have to pay attention to it. So I do this for all people. I have friends from all backgrounds, all colors, all walks of life. I've served in the military. I've been around the world, so I'm not saying that my channel exists only for people that look like me. But I know that a lot of people who do look like me don't pay attention to politics, and that actually annoys me. So for all of my brothers and sisters that do not look like me, it's like, welcome. I'm glad you're here. You guys are partially the reason why I even know a different side of politics. But for the people that do look like me, please, people, pay attention. Pay attention. I think Stephen A. Smith does a great job at asking Tom Holman the questions. I did see a little thing, side note, online, going back and forth. Not so much like an argument, but kind of like him saying something to Ben Shapiro, and Ben Shapiro kind of saying something in reference to him. I don't know if he actually said anything to him, but I really hope eventually we could get these two on a podcast. I'm interested to see what that looks like, these two having a conversation, especially because Ben Shapiro thinks Stephen A. Smith kind of race baits. So I'm just wondering what that conversation is going to look like, if they even have it, if they do. I think if Stephen A. Smith progresses to that point, right, because you don't want to be emotional talking to Ben Shapiro, right? We know Ben can talk in circles, and we know how Ben is, and Ben's on top of his game, right? I don't know many guys that can give us a little bit of a background on Ukraine in 7 minutes and actually articulate themselves extremely well, extraordinarily well. So, that's Ben Shapiro for you. So if he is able to get on a podcast with him or have a conversation with him, I would love to see it. I think a lot of Stephen's knowledge about politics would expand because between people like Officer Tatum, isn't that his channel? Let me check. Yep, I knew it, Brandon Tatum. So between Brandon Tatum, Officer Tatum, Candace Owens, Ben Shapiro, sometimes the Hodge twins, but you can't always take them serious. They play too much. But between conservative people, leaning people that look like that, these are a lot of the areas where I went and I got a lot of my information. Now, I did mention Ben Shapiro in there, and I'm not saying, we know Ben Shapiro is Jewish, but he's also been one of the people who I have used to get credible news from. And before I was doing that, it did seem pretty heavy throughout the years. But with time, it got easier, it got better. I'm not gonna lie, my time in the military also did help me understand a lot of things. So I literally just existing to help people understand, so we're not making uninformed, ignorant decisions. It's good enough for me. It really is. It's good enough for me. And I enjoy the space. So with that being said, I want to play this interview by Stephen A. Smith and Tom Holman. And let's take a look at some of the questions we see Stephen ask him and how Mr. Holman answers.
My next guest has spent more than 4 decades monitoring America's border. He joined the United States Border Patrol in 1984. In 2013, he was appointed by then President Barack Obama as Immigration and Customs Enforcement's Executive Associate Director. He was charged with enforcement and removal operations under that administration. Then in 2017, he was appointed as the Acting Director of ICE by then President Donald Trump. However, he subsequently retired from the position in 2018. Now he's back with President Trump in this new administration as the border czar. Please welcome to the Stephen A. Smith Show, Mr. Tom Holman. Mr. Holman, how are you, sir? How's everything?
I'm doing great.
For being on the show, let's get right to it. I wanted to remind our audience that you served under President Obama. He tapped you to lead the Immigration and Customs Enforcement's deportation branch in 2013. How does your role differ now between the Obama and the Trump administrations? How does it differ from what it was then to what it is now?
Hey, Robert, from Churchill. I'm a huge fan. Hey, what is your #1 tip for saving money?
Under President Obama, I was the head of enforcement removal operations. When I was there, we oversaw the removal of just shy of 3 million illegal aliens. Now I'm the border czar under President Trump. I have a direct report to the president here. So I overlook what the president assigned me on this new role. I oversee border operations. I got 3 goals: secure the borders, run a deportation operation, a massive deportation operation, and third, find missing children that were smuggled into the country. And the last administration lost track of them. We need to find these children because many of them will be in harm's way. Many aren't, but we need to find these children and make sure they're safe.
I mentioned that Donald Trump had appointed you as acting director of ICE in 2017, but you retired in 2018. What happened then, and why are you back now? Because you stepped away, but obviously you came back. You served over 30 years. I mean, you've given your service and what have you, and you could have retired and went out into the sunset, but you came back. Why did you feel compelled to do so? So please share that with all my audience.
Well, it's the second time I came back out of retirement from President Trump. Didn't make my wife happy, but how do you not come back? I mean, under the last 4 years, I wake up every day upset over the last 4 years because we had the most secure border in my lifetime. I've done this since, as you said, 1984. It's the most secure border in my lifetime. The numbers proved it. And what the last administration did, we opened the border up. I knew every day when I woke up, more women and children are being sex trafficked across an open border. More Americans would die from fentanyl overdoses, poisonings because of an open border. Sex trafficking of women and children would increase on an open border, and more non-suspected terrorists and people on the watch list would get into the country through an open border. So I was insulted that President Biden took the most secure border in my lifetime and unsecured it on purpose. And I mean that. Look, I worked for 6 presidents starting with Ronald Reagan. Every president I've worked for, including Obama and Clinton, took steps to secure the border if they clearly understood you can't have national security if you don't have border security.
I thought that was, now when Tom Holman said this, first he says that he unsecured the border on purpose. So it's important that we pay attention to that. And then he says even presidents like Clinton and Obama took steps to make sure that the border was secure. Now, I thought that was, at first when he said that, I just kind of like brushed it off and I thought it was extremely alarming. But I didn't pay much attention to it. But then he goes on at some point to talk more about what Biden was watching, and because of the things he witnessed, he was able to do what he did. So let's just keep watching.
President Biden is the first president in history of this nation who came in unsecured the border. So it upset me because I knew every day someone's going to die crossing that border. Women are going to be sexually assaulted crossing that border. So when President Trump called me, he asked me if you want to come back and help fix that border. I didn't hesitate. I came back because I think it's the right thing to do.
You've worked at obviously doing what you've done. It spanned decades. So obviously one could easily surmise you have a lot of intel. You have a lot of access to information that the average American citizen may not know or what have you. Let me ask you this, and I don't mean to ask it politically, but I'm asking it this way. Have you received any kind of explanation as to why former President Biden literally went against what former President Barack Obama did during his presidency? And the numbers show he actually deported more immigrants out of this country than Trump did.
Facts.
Yet Biden comes into office in 2020 and he went completely against what Obama had done.
Now, that's an important thing to ask, because the answer Tom's going to give. But the fact that Steve says at one point, Obama deported more immigrants than Trump. Now, I know, but I'm not by any means, and I'm not saying this for you guys to be a fan of me. I've been like this for some time. And a lot of people around me, they literally either can't believe it or don't like it. But I by no means, I'm not a fan of Obama. I haven't been for some time. People have asked me, like, did you vote for Obama? And I'm like, just no. So at the end of the day, he says Obama deported more immigrants than Trump. Now, everybody's getting upset with President Trump, right? But to the liberals, Barack Obama he's almost they treat him like the living Jesus, but he's not, right? It's like this man can do no wrong. So no one says anything about how many immigrants President Obama deported. And I actually was aware of that. Like, I knew he deported a lot under his administration. And it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was a whole lot. Like, it wasn't in the double digits. But he deported more immigrants than President Trump did. And no one said anything to that. The minute President Trump comes in office, they're like, oh my God, he wants to get rid of all of the immigrants. The economy is going to collapse. But no one was making that kind of a noise when Obama was doing it. And this is the type of energy that I don't like. And this is when I can tell that people can't understand what's going on. Mind you, President Trump, Obama did that to, not even in the same scenario that President Trump is in right now. So there's no reason why President Trump shouldn't be able to double those numbers. But he's actually been slowed down, and they're going to talk about that also. So let's keep watching.
2020, and he went completely against what Obama had done. You ever received an intel explanation as to why he did that?
That's a great question. You're the first one to ask me that question, right? Now, I surmise, I have an opinion that I think this administration thought these millions of people are going to be future Democratic voters. But one of the things Biden also did, in addition to destroying all the programs we put in place to get us the most secure border, he overturned the Trump census rule, which means millions of people then released in sanctuary cities will be counted in the next census, which is going to result in what? More seats in the House for the Dems. So I truly believe they saw future political benefit of this during all the programs we put in place to get us the most secure border. He overturned the Trump census rule, which means millions of people then.
See this right here, and Tom's talking about this right now. So let's listen carefully. But this right here is what people forget. If President Barack Obama deported more immigrants than President Trump, President Biden had a front row seat to everything that President Barack Obama was doing. So in order for President Barack Obama to have so much effectiveness in his deportations, he had to have some sort of plan. At the time, his vice president was, you know who, our last president. So he watches every single thing that Obama does, puts into place, and does. Tom Holman. Now we have President Trump's border czar saying, yes, Barack took steps to secure the border. He just said that himself. Under no coercion. He said it on his own. So that means that Biden had a front row seat to watching everything that Barack did. And Tom Holman says it himself. He said Biden basically did the total opposite. Every single thing that Barack did, Biden did the total opposite of what Barack Obama did. And that's why we even see the influx of immigrants that we see. That's why it's not just 3 million that came in or even 6 million that came in. They're saying numbers like 11 million immigrants. And some people can't even begin to understand how would that number even get that high. Trump's administration is lying. How could it even jump to that number? Well, if someone had a front row seat to how someone did it really well, they would know exactly what to do to go in to do things the total opposite and sabotage everything. It makes total sense to me.
Released in sanctuary cities will be counted in the next census, which is going to result in what? More seats in the House for the Dems. So I truly believe they saw future political benefit of this. But you're exactly right. And I've said this. Why do I think he did it on purpose? Because Joe Biden was vice president under Barack Obama when he had those record removals. Alejandro Mayorkas was a deputy secretary under Obama when we had those removals. And we had families. We had thousands of families coming across the border every day. How do we stop it? We built family residential centers. We held them long enough to see a judge. 90% lost their case. 90%. So we put in an airplane, sent them home, the border numbers changed. So both those men knew how we solved that crisis. When they came back in, as now the secretary and the president, what did they do? The complete opposite. They didn't detain, they released. They didn't make them see a judge, and they weren't removing them. So they did the complete opposite of what they knew worked under President Obama.
Wow. Let me ask you this, though, because you mentioned children on several of your answers already. And I know you mentioned you're trying to find children that were separated from their parents. How does that process work, actually? How do you go about the business of finding, children that have been separated from their parents?
Well, look, and I'll be honest with you, I've been honest from day one, that is going to be the hardest. Out of the 3 goals that I have, that is going to be the hardest, and for obvious reasons. 500,000 children, more than 500,000 children were smuggled in the country, separated from their parents, put in the hands of criminal cartels.
Yo, let's talk about it. How do 500,000 children go missing and Biden and Kamala aren't even being questioned? I don't understand how that's flying. I'm wondering if eventually President Trump's going to try to start some type of investigation or something. But there's no way there could have been a Republican in office and that many children go missing and they not try to prosecute the Republican. I think that it's wild that 500,000 children are missing and President Biden is not being questioned about it. nothing with Kamala Harris, and it happened under that administration. I think that's crazy.
To be brought in this country legally. And you and I, we leave our child in the car in the middle of summer, we'll get arrested. But these 500,000 children were put in the hands of criminal cartels, released into the country by the last administration. The last administration was concerned about one thing: optics. So the instructions to ORR, which is Division HHS, was to process release as quickly as you can, because if there's no overcrowding, we can say the board's secure, nothing to see here, right? Even the secretary of HHS, Becerra, he on stage several times, he was bragging how quickly they release these children to so-called sponsors. Here's the problem: they didn't vet these sponsors appropriately. Under the Trump administration, we did DNA testing. We not only vetted the sponsor, we vetted everybody in that household to make sure there wasn't a child predator in that household, make sure there wasn't a gang member in that household. We took a lot of steps to make sure these children will be saved when they're sent to the sponsors. Under this administration, the whistleblowers at HHS has made it clear many of these sponsors weren't fingerprinted, many of them they weren't run through record checks, and many of the identification they provided was not assured that it was legitimate identification. So here's the issue now. We got 300,000 children we need to find. And there's a way to find you and me, Stephen. We have a footprint. We have a digital footprint. We own homes, we own cars, we pay bills, we got loans, and we got utility bills, whatever. They can find us. But a child don't have that digital footprint, which means we got to use the digital footprint of the sponsors and what information they provided, and we know a lot of the information is fraudulent. So it's going to be a difficult job. I can tell you right now, we'll find some of these children, and not every one of these children are in harm's way. Many of them won't find them with their parents, but many of them are not. Based on my 4 decades of doing this, many of these children will be in forced labor. We already found many in forced labor. Some are going to be in sexual slavery. And so we need to find these children and save them. But that's the hardest part about this job, because of the data that we have is not the best data in the world, but we're not going to give up. President Trump's committed, do everything we can to find these children.
I think that, I can appreciate Tom Holman's transparency there, because I know it's not going to be easy to find these children. And he makes a great point when he talks about a digital fingerprint. And it's so true. We have one. He says we pay bills, we own cars, we have loans, we have utility bills. He's like, they can find us if they need to find us. He's like, but children don't have this same digital fingerprint, or digital footprint. So it's a lot harder. He did say a lot of them are going to be with their parents. He said most of them are going to be with their parents, but a lot of them are not. And some of them are going to be in sexual slavery, sex trafficking and things like that. So it's kind of, it's a hard pill to swallow. I know the number is not quite at 500,000. I'm pretty sure. Last time I actually checked, I thought it was 383,000, but I think it's in the 400,000s now. So I just think it's a heartbreaking thing. I was talking to my wife about it, and I said one of the hardest things I saw was when I saw the father and the little girl that were killed at the border together, and I think they found them either near a swamp or like halfway in a river. And I just thought, like, man, that's so heartbreaking. Like, just trying to make a trip, and these cartels are like so freaking disgusting. Like, it just makes me so angry when I think about things like that, because these people are just trying to come, like, especially when it's whole families traveling with children, and to just kill a man and his child like that. I was just thinking, like, man, yeah, man, like, it's a hard pill to swallow, but I appreciate Tom's transparency, because he's like, the children are going to be the hardest thing. They don't have a digital footprint. A lot of the people who say that they're their sponsors, they produce fraudulent identification, or, the last administration wasn't very thorough with the sponsors. So things like that are just heartbreaking to think about. But I appreciate Tom Holman's transparency in that, because he's right. It is going to be a lot harder to find people who are basically untraceable, who've never had a credit card, who never had, never made a purchase, like never made a credit card or even a cash purchase. So yeah, don't own a car. So it's a lot harder.
Get back to you with this question too, though. You're considered one of the masterminds of the first Trump administration's infamous zero tolerance policy, which led to the separation of thousands of migrant children from their parents in the eyes of many at the very least. The idea led to the separation of more than, I think, 4,000 children from their parents, and some were lamenting that some of them were put in cages. How do you answer these questions? For those that don't know, how do you answer questions like that, like I just posed to you, in terms of 4,000 children being separated from their parents?
Absolutely. So where did zero tolerance come from? Zero tolerance came from this. 31% of women in that journey get raped by the criminal cartels. Children were dying on that border every day. Dying. Either drowning in a river, dying making that journey. Children were sexually assaulted, and children were dying in the desert. You know, they made that journey, and a lot of women and children not only died, many were sexually assaulted. So we said, look, how can we save lives? How can we stop the sexual assault of children? So we said, look, let's prosecute them because it's a crime to enter this country legally. So if we prosecute them and put them in jail, maybe the numbers go down, maybe less will come. And it worked. Zero tolerance, the numbers of families putting themselves in harm's way, putting themselves in the hands of criminal cartels dropped significantly. However, the sad part about it, the unfortunate part about it, is that when you prosecute a parent and put them in jail, the child will go with them. And I'll say this, I started as a police officer in New York. Police agencies across this country separate families 1,000 times a day across this country because a child doesn't go to jail with a parent. And I've said during my testimony, and one time I was testifying at Hill, when I was a cop in New York, when I went to domestic violence trial and I arrested the father, I separated that family. Child can't go to jail with him. When I arrested a DUI and had a child in the car, I separated that family. It's an unfortunate and saddest part of law enforcement. Families get separated when the parents get arrested. So we do let the families 1,000 times a day in this country with Americans, but they want a different set of rules for illegal aliens. But
that's kind of crazy because it's like he had a drop the mic moment there because it's true. You know, he's like, when I go arrest people for a DUI, I separate the family because the child can't go to jail with the parent. He's like, police officers, the most unfortunate part of law enforcement is families get separated. He's like, but we do it every day in this country. And we want different rules for illegal aliens. And it's you can't really argue with the guy. You can't really argue with him because it makes sense. You know, he's like, we are doing this every single day in America, and then Trump's administration comes in and they're just like, oh my God, like he doesn't want to let any illegal immigrants in, and he's separating children from their parents, and like they're never gonna see them again. And Tom Holman's like, this happens all of the time in America because children don't go to jail with their parents. And it's true. I've been a part of ministries in different churches where during Christmas time, we go and we see the mothers or we see the fathers and we give them a present. So when their children come see them, they have a present to give to their children. There's all kind of ministries that actually do exist like that. So Tom Holman is definitely right here. Families are separated every single day in America if we just look at when an arrest happens, whether it's with the mother or the father.
With Americans, but they want a different set of rules for illegal aliens. But the whole intent of doing this was to save lives, with less sexual assaults of women and children. That was the whole purpose for it. But they keep harping on that Trump's family separation policy. But and you're right, about 4,000. But they don't talk about the 500,000. 500,000 separations that this administration is responsible for, because they send a message to the whole world. If you're a child and you're crossing the country illegally, you're not going to be deported. We'll deliver you to the very same people who pay the criminal cartel to smuggle into this country. So, you know, what we did was try to save lives and decrease sexual assaults. What they did was send a message to the whole world. Child can cross the border, we'll get them to the final destination at government expense and reward the people who pay the criminal cartels. And that's why the numbers exploded, because there's no consequence. We had a consequence, they did.
That's an incredibly compelling answer that you just gave. I can't refute it. No one should, as far as I'm concerned, sir. But I would ask you this, because whether it's optics or it's a reality, listening to what you said, how sensitive you are to these issues, what one would argue diametrically opposes that is when we see one story, and granted it's one individual, but it's still a 10-year-old in Texas who's a U.S. citizen being deported to Mexico, you know, suffering from brain cancer. You've seen that story plastered all over the news wires over the last couple of days. How do you explain your mode of thinking and your explanation about why you do what you do and why you're committed to doing what you're doing, which is pretty damn close to irrefutable, I might add. But then we see a case like that happening. How do you justify that?
Look, you and I are on the same page. Actually, I've been on travel the last couple of days. I saw that story on my way to work this morning. I read that story, and what did I do? I immediately contacted the office of the Border Patrol and said, I want facts on this case. Because many times the facts are different when you read the media, but I've already inquired about it. What happened here? What's the ground truth here? So I'm looking into it. I read that story this morning. I know I'm a day behind, but I get hundreds of phone calls, hundreds of texts. I have a lot of meetings. I'm on the airplane all the time, but I've asked this morning because we want to make sure. Look, I've been honest from the beginning. We want to be transparent American people. If we screw up, we didn't know we screw up. If we do something, so I've already asked that question. I don't have the facts on that. I've asked for fact, ground truth on that, and I'll deal with it once I get the facts up on the ground from what actually happened. Because many times what you read in the media, they leave half the story out. Sometimes they don't, but I'm going to find out.
Well, I appreciate that answer. That's very honest and stand up for you. Thank you for saying that. Are you saying that you don't know all the facts yet? And if you do find out that this 10-year-old child was indeed a United States citizen, that you will make sure that child is not deported?
I'll make sure I get all the facts and make a decision based on the facts. I can't tell you what I'm going to do yet. The facts could be 1,000 different ways, right? But are the parents a public safety threat? Are they national security threat? They can't be here. And so we got to find out what the facts are, but we'll make a decision that is the most humanitarian thing we can do.
Let me switch to sanctuary cities because obviously I've seen you, and I shouldn't say this. It's actually bad for me to say this on camera.
At least 2 times Stephen A. Smith got him in a position where you can kind of tell that he didn't expect that question. So the question when he asked about the 4,000 families being separated, and a question right there where he goes, are you saying that if you indeed figure out that this child with brain cancer is a U.S. citizen that they won't get deported? And Tom Holman says, well, I'm saying I can't really tell you that because I don't know all the facts yet, but we'll try to do the most humanitarian thing. So this is why I say it wasn't about a lot of deep thoughts here. It was just that I felt like Stephen A. Smith asked good questions that probably, let's just say, a normal person that might have some questions for Trump's cabinet would get to ask. So I think that he did a great job just asking questions that might just be on the mind of the people.
But I haven't minded you at all, going at elected officials and law enforcement officials and letting them know that they were going to be accountable if they didn't follow the law. Didn't bother me at all to see that from you. But I am wondering, what are your future plans for sanctuary cities? And do you see a legal solution to sanctuary cities in this country?
Introducing the Concordia Ascent Touch Bean to Cup Premium Coffee Brewer. Your guests can indulge in up to 4 different coffees.
I actually do. We're working on some things right now. I don't want to share it here on this podcast because it's law enforcement sensitive. We're working on some things now, but I can say this. Sanctuary cities are sanctuary for criminals. And we're going to hold them accountable. And Pam Bondi, now that she's Attorney General, she's already filed lawsuits. We're going to continue filing lawsuits because we think knowingly releasing a public safety threat back in the public is just dumb. There's no reason for that. When you release a public safety threat back in the public, it puts our officers at great risk. Because rather than arresting somebody in the safety and security of county jail, now we got to go in the neighborhood and find them, which is dangerous for the officer, dangerous for the alien, because anything can happen on a street arrest, and it's certainly dangerous for the community. So we want to make, and sanctuary cities, they don't understand, they're hurting themselves. Because when you don't give us access to the bad guy locked in the jail cell, which is safe for everybody, you release them to the community, you're going to get exactly what you don't want. You're going to put the public at greater risk of crime because many will commit another crime. And what you will force ICE in the community, we'll find the bad guy, but when we find him, he's probably with others that aren't a criminal threat, but they're in the country illegally. Well, they're going to go to, because we're not going to turn our back on illegal aliens once we find them. We're going to let ICE do their job and enforce immigration law. So what you get being a sanctuary city is exactly what you don't want. More officers in the community and more collateral arrests because we found them while we're looking for the bad guy. So we want the sanctuary cities to do one thing. Let us end the jail. Let us talk to the person that you locked in the jail cell, because obviously the public safety threat. Give us access to that person. It's safer for everybody. It's the right thing to do. And the message from sanctuary cities is this, which is a bunch of crap. Well, we're a sanctuary city. We're a welcoming jurisdiction. We want illegal aliens and feel safe, and they want to report crimes or the victim of crime. They come to us for help without the fear of working with ICE. That is so false, because number one, we don't want to talk to the victim witness. We want to talk to the guy you locked in a jail cell. And if you go talk to the victim witness and ask him, do you want the bad guy released back in your neighborhood? The victim and witness don't want him back either. So let us get access to the person locked in that taxpayer-funded jail to help drive crime down the neighborhood and make it safe for officers and alien in the community. It just makes sense to me as a career cop. I don't understand why any elected official whose number one responsibility is protection of the community, why would you not work with us to remove a child rapist from the community rather than release them back in the community?
I mean, he's making a good point here. A lot of people, like, they had a problem with this as far as sanctuary cities because they felt like they should be left alone. But I have felt like Tom Holman has made a good point here when he says, listen, like, let us in the jail to talk to the guy that you put in the cell, because his thing is that they, at this point, they don't even want them in the United States. They're like, we're trying to get them all out. So they don't even want them in the jails. Now, the thing with the sanctuary cities is this. A sanctuary city is a safe haven for where we could say that people who are from another country can go and they can be safe. So I don't want to say, I want to break it down to you guys what it really is, because really what it looks like is that you could be in this city and basically the immigration law is not thoroughly enforced, right? So you're not going to be messed with, you're not going to be picked on, you're not going to have people banging at your door asking if you have a green card, and I'm not going to say if you're not in a sanctuary city that does happen, but I'm giving those examples to show that this is why the sanctuary cities were overcrowded, right? There were four of the mayors from major sanctuary cities at a Senate hearing. This was 2 weeks ago, and I wanted to cover this, and actually I was gonna cover it in a live, and I probably just had a lot of different stories that day, and I skipped straight over it, so I didn't cover it. But I forgot. Now at this point, I don't know if I'm going to be able to recall all of the mayors who were there, but I know it was Mayor Adams from New York. It was I can't remember this lady's name, but she was the mayor from Boston, Asian lady. I think it was the mayor from Denver and the mayor from Chicago. So I'm pretty sure I'm right. It was those four mayors that were there. And I mean, they were at a Senate hearing and they were fighting to the point that Tom Holman is saying, that they were defending the fact that because we are a sanctuary city, people feel safe to be able to come here and work with us, and they don't feel like, and they can report crimes to us, and they don't feel like they're going to get deported or be forced to work with ICE, or, you know, have to answer any questions that lead to them possibly being deported. So that's what the mayors were defending, and that's the problem that Tom Holman has, because he says, you know, if these people come to you and they make a report of a crime, we're not going after those people. We want the person you locked up. But the mayors were contesting. They don't know that. Like, these people don't know that you're not going to go after them. All they hear is that the Trump administration is trying to mass deport. So, of course, they're going to be, I mean, she made a decent point there. I mean, all of them did, because I can understand just that natural human fear of like, yeah, I'm trying to go do the right thing, but I might actually end up in a bad situation. Well, you know, there's two sides to that. Some people will say, well, you should be doing the right thing at all times when no one is looking, right? That's what they tell us in the Marine Corps. That's what integrity looks like, doing the right thing when no one's looking at you. So someone could say that, and then someone could also say, hey, this is just a law-abiding person that's here, and while they might not be a citizen, they pay the things they need to pay. They're not bothering anybody, and they're just trying to report a crime. So, I mean, I can see both sides of the coin, so that makes it difficult. But that's Tom Holman's point. He just thinks that the mayors are pushing, they're just pushing a bunch of crap, and they're trying to, like, you know, hold off and maybe just buy time, when Tom Holman's like, listen, let us into the jails, let us talk to the guys that we need to talk to, so we can get these guys out of America. That's his ultimate goal. They don't even want him in the prisons.
I got about 3 more questions for you, because I know your time is precious, and I really appreciate you giving me this time. Prior to the election, you pledged to conduct the largest deportation in American history. Now, there's more than 11 million undocumented immigrants living in the United States. Where do we stand today in terms of identifying those individuals and deporting them out of the country?
Great question, because I've read media stories this morning. We're deporting less people than Joe Biden. Yeah, because Joe Biden had millions of people coming across the border every year, and a lot of border patrols are removing a lot of them. So you can't compare the administration. It isn't how many are removed. It's number one, how many did you release into the country illegally? And Biden administration is in the millions. And the more important question is, how many interior arrests, people in the interior country did you arrest? If you look at those numbers, we're about 3 times higher than Joe Biden was during the same time period. We got about 36,000 arrests so far, vast majority of criminals, because President Trump has promised American people on this mass deportation operation, the worst first, the criminals first, because they're the biggest danger to the communities. National security threats, public safety threats, that's what we're concentrating on. But that aperture will open to the 1.4 million that had due process at great taxpayer expense, were ordered removed, but instead of leaving, they became a fugitive. That aperture will open up. You will see the arrests increase in the near future. But the problem is sanctuary cities. Sanctuary cities are making us less efficient. Well, rather than one agent arresting one bad guy in the jail, now we got to send a whole team.
So when Tom Holman says that they are, I'm gonna see if I can go. I think it's about right here, but we'll see. But when he says that he heard a statistic or an analyst say that they are deporting less people than the Biden administration, and he goes, well, no kidding, Biden let millions of people in here. So what he's saying is that even if we put a dent in it, it's still going to seem like we're not doing much just because of how many people he led to the United States. And I thought that was a sad thing. They do have good numbers based on what he's saying. I'm not gonna lie, if the number that came in was smaller, we probably see substantially better numbers. But it looks like because the number is so large right now, we might not see what looks like a dent in it until maybe a year and a half. I'm thinking a year and a half, possibly 2 years. And some of you might say I'm too long on that. But when we really think about this number, if this number is anywhere close to 11 million in total, it's like, yeah, we got a pretty big problem, guys.
Important question is, how many interior arrests, people in the interior country did you arrest? If you look at those numbers, we're about 3 times higher than Joe Biden was during the same time period. We got about 36,000 arrests so far, vast majority of criminals, because President Trump has promised American people on this mass deportation operation, the worst first, the criminals first, because they're the biggest danger to the communities. National security threats, public safety threats, that's what we're concentrating on. But that aperture will open to the 1.4 million that had due process at great taxpayer expense, were ordered removed, but instead of leaving, they became a fugitive. That aperture will open up. You will see the arrests increase in the very near future. But the problem is sanctuary cities. Sanctuary cities are making us less efficient. Well, rather than one agent arresting one bad guy in the jail, now we got to send a whole team into the neighborhood for officer safety reasons to find somebody that don't want to be found. So that's slowing us up.
Yeah.
But what we'll do, we'll double the man force in sanctuary cities. We'll double the teams. We're not when we stop. We'll overcome all the roadblocks we're putting in. But we're going to get it done.
But you're talking about in Guantanamo Bay, for example, there's tens of thousands of available space, but there are millions of immigrants in this country illegally. So I'm saying if you're successful from a deportation standpoint in terms of locating who those individuals are, there's only but so much room in Guantanamo Bay. Where else are they going to go? What are you going to do with them?
Another great question. I've been on media for the last 2 weeks. Congress needs to fund this operation. We need money because you're right. Every illegal immigrant we arrest, we need a bed for. Our bed's almost full right now. So we need money so we can do what the American people voted for. The number one issue was illegal immigration and removing criminal aliens. So Congress needs to come and give us the funding to do this. We need to buy more beds. We need to have more out of country planes. We need more contracts to have more contract people come in and do the work that doesn't require law enforcement. Law enforcement is currently doing. So you're exactly right. Congress needs to come to. I'm hoping they sign a bill today or hopefully tonight. We need a bill right now, but we need reconciliation. We need money to be successful because the more money we have, the more successful we're going to be.
I opened it up and I was like, I'm not going to get him. My friend saw it first and she said, you got in. She went,
I got to admit, Mr. Holman, that should be the easiest part of your job. I mean, the president has all 3 branches of government in his favor. I mean, the GOP has that, the White House, the Senate, the House. I mean, it shouldn't be difficult at this particular moment in time for them to give you what you want since they assigned you to do this job. But I want to transition real quick to undocumented workers. So a lot of people argue, they've had a massive economic benefit. They've been a massive economic benefit to this country. They pay taxes, are important to the workforce, are less violent than some naturalized citizens. That's the thing that you keep hearing people say. What role does that play in your thinking when it comes to issues of deportation?
Well, if you're in the country legally, you got a problem. It's not okay to be here legally. But as you know, we're prioritizing worst of the worst fugitives. And here's the issue. Now, I'll use one example, and this is a true example. I had new roof put on my house 2 years ago. I had to call 6 companies before I got a company that guaranteed me a legal workforce. And one person that showed was a father and son. Father and son used to have 20 United States citizen employees. When him and his son came by and said, "Can I just repair the roof? Do we need to replace your roof?" Because him and his son can't replace the whole roof. Here's the story he told me. He had to fire 20 U.S. citizen employees because he was competing against all these companies that had illegal aliens paying them, $7 an hour to get on the roof. Well, he was paying U.S. citizen $20 to get on the roof. People need to understand that no one hires an illegal alien on the goodness of their heart. So Harvard can pay them less, work them further, work them harder, and undercut their competition as U.S. citizen employees. Now, I'll say this, if we need it.
See, that's a hard pill to swallow because I don't want to say, like Tom Holman's pretty right about that. And it sounds bad, but so we're just going to entertain that. He says, what people don't understand is that no one is hiring immigrants out of the goodness of their heart. So is that true in its totality? I would say no. Because I work for a pretty large company that we have people come from other countries all the time and work for our company, and they do not come in necessarily paid less than everybody who already works there or less than every single American citizen. There's been plenty of people that have come there in my company from other countries who have had PhDs, have had masters, have had worked at other countries as CFOs, and they've had pretty prominent positions within the company I currently work for. So as a whole, no, everyone doesn't think like that. But in general, I would say Tom Holman is pretty spot on. And I didn't want to say it, but like I said, I don't always watch everything in its totality before I sit here with you guys. Some things I like it to just react to it raw with you. But at this point, I will say, if on my own, I can probably name at least, I don't know, let's just say for giggles, 10, at least 10, people that are not from this country that came here and they're being paid under the table. I'm just one person. I'm literally just one person that knows at least 10 people. So that goes to show you, if there are other people that know about the same amount or more than me, we're not going to say the majority of people are being paid on the books that are immigrants that are not from this country. We're not going to say that because I actually don't think that that's true. I do think that there is a very decent amount, especially depending on what company that they are with or they are working for. But I can't tell you, let's not even go into the hospitality field, because depending on what hotel you're at and how much it costs a night, most of the maids that are working there are not even on the books, right? And that's not even a big secret. So, Tom Holman's kind of letting the cat out the bag here.
Work them harder and undercut their competition as U.S. citizen employees. Now, I'll say this, if we need that type of staff to come to this country and work, then it's up to Congress to make the changes. But we can't condone hiring illegal aliens because that's what drives everything else. And when you overwhelm the border with what people call innocent immigration, just people coming here for a better life, people coming for a job, but what they need to understand, there's an ugly underbelly of that, because when you overwhelm the border patrol, you type border patrol with what they call innocent immigration, it overwhelms the border patrol, which means there's less agents on the border patrol, the rest of people smuggling fentanyl. There's less people, agents on the border to stop the sex trafficking. What happened to Joe Biden? Joe Biden caused such a huge surge in illegal immigration. 70% of agents were pulled off the line to deal with humanitarian crisis and deal with this so-called innocent illegal immigration. And when they did it, what happened, Steve? 600% increase in sex trafficking. We got 250,000 Americans dead from fentanyl. We got a record number of people on terrorist watch across the border. So We got to do this legally. There are millions of people standing in line right now, taking their tests, paying their fees, doing the background investigation, come to the country the right way. They're sitting in the back seat because CIS is overwhelmed with fraudulent asylum claims. So I get it. If we need a workforce, need more workforce in the country, then create a legal program. They can cover the visa, so they don't have to pay a criminal cartel. They don't have to give their whole life savings to put themselves at risk for a criminal cartel and swim across the river and drown. So Congress needs to do some work, but we can't condone illegal immigration. We can't condone go ahead and enter the country legally, and we're not going to be looking for it. We got to send a message to the whole world. There's a set of rules. There's a right way and a wrong way to come to the greatest nation on earth. Let's do things the right way. I got to look at legislative branch Congress to do that. But in the meantime, we can't okay illegal immigration because it's going to result in more people dying, more women being raped, more cartels, making more money to come to flood this country with poisonous fentanyl.
Very last question to you, sir. I give you the floor. You want America to know what about ICE right now, today, and moving forward?
I'm sick and tired of reading stories that ICE is going to raid your school, they're going to raid your churches, they're doing neighborhood sweeps. People need to understand everybody that ICE arrests is based on a targeted enforcement operation, which means they know who they're going to arrest, they have a pretty good idea where they're going, they have to drop an operational plan. So it's not neighborhood sweeps. We're not going to neighborhoods looking for people different than us. And when we got away with the sense of location policy, we ended it. Why? Because we have to go to a high school arrest an MS-13 member we know is there right now. He's a public safety threat. We need to go to that high school along with the local authorities and arrest that public safety threat. Doesn't mean we're going to raid the school. We're going to go arrest the bad guy that's in the high school, the same as every other federal law enforcement agency, state law enforcement agency, local. They all do it. And ICE should not have a different set of rules. We'll go to schools to arrest a public safety threat, significant public safety threat. Churches, we'll never raid a church, but if we know there's a national security threat we know is in a church right now that we're looking for, we know he's sitting there right now, we're going to arrest that person. Doesn't mean we're raiding schools, doesn't mean we're raiding churches, we're not raiding hospitals, which I see lots of left media saying, they're scaring the immigrant community. I want people to go to school. We want people to go see their doctor, go to hospital, go to church. We got to straighten that narrative out. It's a left that are putting fear in the immigrant community. We are basing our operations right now on the worst of the worst criminals. So go to church, go get your medical care, send your children to school. We're not raiding those places. We're doing the same thing every law enforcement agency does. It's not sweeps, targeted enforcement operation, a lot of planning. We do this carefully. The agents are very professional. So I just wish the left would just state the truth on what we're exactly doing. Look at the data. As I just said, 36,000 arrests, vast majority of criminals. We're doing exactly what President Trump said we would do and that I said we would do. We're concentrating on worse first.
There's no left or right here. I'm center. I care about the damn truth. And as far as I'm concerned, I want you to know, first of all, you're welcome back on the show anytime. I would love to have you back on to get in more intensive conversations about this, even more so than...
I think Stephen A. Smith did a good job hosting him, I think Tom Holman was able to get a lot out that he wanted to, especially in that last part where he said, what do you want the world to know about ICE? And I think that's important that he said that. He's like, we'll never, and he made a good point. He's like, we'll never raid a church. He's like, but right now, we know that there's a dangerous MS-13 gang member in there, or there's, a terrorist or somebody in there. He's like, getting there, yeah, we're going to go in there. We're going to go in the church. And I think that that's sensible, so if there's some leftist, I didn't say liberal, but if there's some extreme leftist rhetoric of, don't go to the hospitals, don't go to school, I could definitely see that happening because fear, they're driving fear into the people. You see President Trump get up and say these things. Tom Holman himself is saying, we're looking for the worst of the worst. We are not looking to go inside a hospital and get someone that's getting treatment or care. We're not looking to go into math class and pull kids out. He's like, that's not what this is. And I think that it's being driven, a little bit of that is coming from fear from the left of just not wanting to gain any knowledge, not wanting to understand what President Trump's administration is actually trying to do. And I'm not trying to cut President Trump's administration all the slack here. I'm just saying, it's easier to be fearful when you're ignorant. and in a situation where you don't understand or know what's happening, especially in the background, it's easy just to, be fearful and start driving a rhetoric that could scare people. So I'm glad that Tom Holman said it the way that he said it, where he's like, we're not looking to do these type of things. When ICE goes in there, they're like every other law enforcement agency. We're not doing sweeps. It's well planned out. We know exactly where we're going. So I appreciated this interview a lot. That's why I made you guys sit through it, because I think that it was an important interview to see, and for everybody to see. And that's why it was the first video of the live. So guys, now switching gears a little bit, not so much, still on the Democratic side. Chuck Schumer. What up, Chucky? So CBS News covered this. Chuck Schumer on Democrats' future Senate leadership, Israeli strikes, and more. The reason why I mainly wanted to cover this is because, Chuck Schumer said some things here that I thought was interesting that we need to hear about as far as the Democratic Party goes. 2028 is not that close, but it's not that far either. And it will come a point in time where, at least midterms are coming and people start looking at, who's the next presidential candidate. So Chuck Schumer had some things to say about some of the plans he and Hakeem Jeffries have and why he decided to vote for the bill, because the hosts actually do a pretty decent job pressing him and saying, hey, listen, the Democrats, they're upset with you right now. A lot of people feel like you shouldn't be leader right now. They feel like it's time for you to step down. They feel like you sold them out. What do you say about that? Chuck kind of explains why he voted the way he voted for the bill. And he kind of paints this picture that he had to take one for the team. He says, I knew I was going to get a lot of flack. I knew I was going to get a lot of protests, but I had to take one for the team. Mind you, this also has caused him to push his book sales back, because with the Democratic Party in disarray, it's not going to be easy for him to go to his friends and say, hey, can you buy my book right now, right? So that's also at play too. So let's see how Mr. Chuck Schumer's interview went.
Experiencing right now in America began after the worst instance of violence now in America. Spike in anti-Semitism we're experiencing right now in America began after the worst instance of violence committed against Jewish people since the Holocaust.
Back in 2023, New York Senator Chuck Schumer made a passionate and personal speech from the Senate floor condemning anti-Semitism, and that is the topic of his new book called Anti-Semitism in America, A Warning. In it, he writes, the rise of anti-Semitism is a, quote, five-alarm fire that threatens American democracy. And Senator Schumer joins us now. Senator, thank you very much for being here.
Great to be with you all.
We want to be looking out your window when I woke up this morning, right? You've got protesters out there. It's been a difficult few days. We're going to get to that. We're also going to get to the book. But I want to talk about what's going on in the Middle East. Because overnight, the ceasefire that had held and that you celebrated between Israel and Hamas has been broken.
Right.
Your reaction to that, and do you think a ceasefire could get back on the table, could be reestablished?
They were really close, and this ceasefire, the second round of the ceasefire is important because first it says Hamas, which I believe has been a large cause of the trouble, would disarm, and Israel would remove its soldiers from Gaza. So they were close. It fell apart. I don't know the exact details. It happened overnight, but I think our government has to work really hard to bring them back to the table and get those hostages home. And I think it's possible because they were close at one point.
Now, last week, you and 9 other Democrats helped avert a government shutdown by voting for a Republican-written bill, which many Democrats have been angered by, and we've seen it described as a civil war, as a train wreck. Many Democrats believe, if you have a government shutdown that will force President Trump and Republicans to the negotiating table, why not use your vote to push back?
Because the idea that they would go to the negotiating table is they don't do it. This is a new group. This is not the old group. Let me explain. I knew when I took this vote, there'd be a lot of protests, but I felt I had to do it for the future, not only of the Democratic Party, but the country. Because as bad as that CR bill was, and it was bad, a shutdown is 10 times worse. Let me give you what happens.
It's been blamed on the Democrats.
And you're right, Gail. But can I just explain what?
But you had been saying you were not going to vote. I think people were upset with you, and people were very upset with you because you had led people to believe that, no, I'm going to vote against it.
Okay, well, let me explain why first the shutdown is terrible.
And this is true. He did lead people to believe this because this is on March 12th. He's at a Senate hearing. He's kind of proud at the fact that the Republicans don't have the votes that they need to pass the bill. He actually distinctively said they need 60 and they have 53. So right now they would need at least 8 Democrats to jump on their side and vote for the bill. They do not have enough, and I will be voting against the bill. That's what Chucky said on March 12th. On March 13th, Senate hearing again, entire tune changes. He's like, we cannot have a government shutdown. There's no way that this can happen. In my live, I said, who paid Chucky? And the reason why I was being facetious like that is because I saw his whole tune change within 24 hours. So I was like, what exactly is going on here? I don't think anyone paid him, but, they're kind of calling him out on it. They're saying it would have been blamed on the Democrats. Yes, that was the rhetoric that was spreading, and I believe it would have been correct. There would have been no reason for the people to blame the Republicans for the shutdown because President Trump's administration has been being extremely transparent. And because of that, the American people would have had no reason to believe that Donald Trump just pulled one over their eyes. They would have known that the Democrats are acting the same way they did at President Trump's joint speech. They're showing him no support. They're acting like little kids who are angry, and they would have got blamed for the shutdown. So I think that that's the primary, if not the only reason why, like, Chuck Schumer voted differently.
Terrible. People ought to know that. The executive branch, in this case, Musk, Doge, and this horrible guy Vogt, who have no concern for working people, would have had sole power to determine what opens and what closes. They determine what is essential. You can't go to court. So on day 2, get rid of SNAP and food for hungry kids. It's not essential. Day 4, get rid of mass transit aid. Let New York City do it. Not essential. Cut back on Medicaid and health care. Within 2 weeks, everyone would have been howling. Furthermore, it's even worse. It has no off-ramp. Guess who determines when we leave the shutdown? The Republicans. And let's not forget how bad they are. This guy Vogt, probably the most evil man. He's the guy who came up with that Project 2025.
Yes.
He has a whole playbook of what to shut down. So they had said, one of the Republican senators who knows said to us, you'll be in the shutdown for 6 to 9 months till we totally destroy the federal government. So the shutdown was a much worse alternative.
And I don't think that's true. I wasn't there. I don't know how true that is, Chuck Schumer. I don't know how true that is. I'm not going to say that he's lying, but to say you'll be shut down for 6 to 9 months until we totally destroy the federal government. When has that ever been Marco Rubio's, President Trump, Elon Musk? When has that ever been their running slogan? It hasn't been. It hasn't been. Not to destroy it, just by his verbiage. That's why I'm saying I don't know if I believe you, Chucky.
I knew I'd get a lot of flack.
But Senator,
I took some bullets
you did,
from other people.
and you're still taking bullets, but should you have let people know you're thinking ahead of time? Because really, people
The
thought...
problem was it came so fast. Hakeem and I had a strategy, which was to try and get a bipartisan bill, which meant in the House, the Republicans would have not been able to pass it. Only at the last minute did it happen that they all voted for it. And so Patty Murray tried to get that bipartisan bill on Wednesday. That's why I said we didn't have the votes yet. They pulled out Wednesday night, and Thursday we had 2 bad choices. But I assure the public, a shutdown would have been the greatest disaster we have to put the government in the sole hands of the evil, nasty, nihilistic people like Musk and Vogt and Trump. Would have been the greatest. We would have had half the federal government we have now. So I thought I did the thing a leader should do. Even when people don't see the danger around the curve, my job was to alert people to it, and I knew I'd get some bullets.
Senator, the leader in question...
I don't like this role that Chucky is playing. I really don't like it. I don't like the role he's playing. Like, he's playing the role of savior, but that's not what happened.
Is actually what people are debating right now. There are people in your party who don't want you to be a leader in the party anymore. And it's a question of what is this moment and what does it require? I want to ask a question about that moment involving the Venezuelan deportations and the court hearings around it. put the charges or lack of evidence or whatever against these men aside for now. And let's just talk about the interaction of the Trump administration and the court.
Yes.
They seem to take the position that this court doesn't have jurisdiction over them, and you have Tom Holman saying he doesn't care what the judge thinks. What did Democrats do, even when the Trump administration defies a federal judge?
First of all, we have to have rule of law. People say, well, that's not me. If we get rid of rule of law, the 248-year tradition in America, this democracy is over, okay? So it's vital to stop it. There are two courts.
Democrats do
there are two courts. One is the court of public opinion. And the public has to make, if this happens, they have to make their voices known, Democrats, Republicans, everyone, in the strongest terms, because it's ending our democracy. Now, but we also have the courts. And so far, the lower courts have done a good job. We hope the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court will do the same job. When the lower courts, and I'm very proud that we put in all those judges last year, many of whom are making these decisions, when the lower courts thus far have said to the Trump administration, you must stop, in most cases they have.
But you're saying you're not going to pay attention to them.
If they don't, and we go to the Supreme Court and it is defied, democracy is at real risk, and there will have to be extraordinary action taken.
Tony touched on it, Senator.
And that is by the people, by everybody.
But there are people in your own party that are saying, look, it's time for you to go. They no longer trust your leadership. They want somebody else in there. What do you say about that?
Here's what I say.
In your own party saying that's to go.
Here's what I'm saying. I'm the best leader for the Senate. We have a lot of leaders. You know, when you don't have a president, there's not one leader of the party. There are lots of them. We have a lot of good people.
To go, Schumer.
But I am the best at keep winning Senate seats. I've done it in 2005, just in 2020. No one thought we'd take back the Senate. Under my leadership, we took it. So we now are executing. We're moving forward. Hakeem and I have a plan. Let me just say this. There's a real contrast between the parties. The Republican Party now, particularly in office, is the party of rich oligarchs who want to really screw every average American so they can get tax cuts for the rich. And we are fighting that every day. So today, we just issued a statement at 8 o'clock that describes it. Hakeem and I, we have a day of action on Medicaid. In every state, in every corner of the country, Democrats are talking about, they're going to Medicaid centers. They're going to people who would be deprived. And
Senator, people don't have faith in the Democrats.
Well, let me say this. And we're going to do this day in, day out on issues. Why are they doing tariffs and raising your cost $2,000? It's beginning to...
So he's Schumer's laying out a plan here about what the Democrats are going to do. And you can tell that the news anchors are kind of frustrated with him. I don't know if you guys are picking up on that. But, they say, Senator, the people don't have faith in the Democrats. And what is Schumer talking about? We're going to go to Medicaid centers. We're going to keep fighting. And I'm just like, dude, the level of tone deaf in the Democratic Party is nauseating at this point.
To work. Why are they taking away Fannie and Freddie and raising your housing costs dramatically? It's beginning to work. His numbers have come down. If we keep at it every day, relentless fighting and showing how they're hurting people so badly, Trump's numbers will get much lower, and his both popularity but also his effectiveness will decline. I believe that strategy will work.
May I hold up the book?
Yes.
This is why you were here.
Yes.
Because that stays news, anti-Semitism.
Yeah, it's coming out at a time when you said you never thought you'd have to write this book, but you never thought anti-Semitism would be as bad as it is.
Yeah.
So for many non-Jewish people, it's alarming, but it's not a...
Okay, so that's Chuck Schumer talking about his book. So if you guys want to go watch that, that's on CBS News. Chuck Schumer on Democrats' future Senate leadership, Israeli strikes, and more. He's talking about anti-Semitism in there, and I don't think it's going to be a bad book. I understand why he made it. I do feel like America is one of the most pro-Jewish places. Really, I do feel like that. But just like other races, you do hear things, we do see things. Yeah, but I just think I just don't trust it because it's coming from Chuck Schumer. If I'm honest with you guys, I don't trust it too much. Sometimes I believe he pushes a real big fear rhetoric with certain things. So I'm not gonna say that his book is completely off and it's not right. But I will say that I think that he's also pushing some rhetoric in it, and I don't really want to be a part of that right now. I've been honest, and I've said to you guys many of times, I don't like this fine line that's been drawn to where it's almost like if you criticize anything that Israel does, it comes off like you're not a supporter of Jewish people. And it's like, I'm not buying into it. I'm not buying into it, not okay with it, not subscribing to it. I think it's asinine because, as I've said before, people could just not want to see people die, right? Like, we could just not want to see people die. Someone who served in the military, I don't like to see war anywhere in the world. So when I just know war is happening in general, it's just it's a horrible thing. So it's not something that I'm in support of, and I don't think most of people are in support of war. There are certain times where steps have to be taken, right, that might lead to war. Hey, and I'm not against that either, right? The book of Ecclesiastes tells us there's a time for everything, right? So there is a time for peace, and guess what? There is a time for war. So I'm not going to say that I'm totally against it, especially someone who served the country. But what I will say is that I don't like when it's going on in any part of the world. So if I'm saying that I don't like the amount of Palestinian people that are being killed, that doesn't mean that I'm okay with the amount of Jewish people getting killed. I'm not okay with any of them getting killed, right? I just think it needs to stop, and there needs to be a resolution to it. So with that being said, guys, switching gears a little bit, gonna jump over to Bill Maher, and it is a little bit of a switch gear because he's not so much of a, he doesn't kill the mood so much, so he's not a mood kill too much. Right now, Bill Maher is talking about how the Democrats need a messaging czar. So today we have kind of seen the Democrats get beat up a little bit. We got the Stephen A. Smith interview, how, Tom Holman goes in and talks about why Biden did what he did and why it's slowing down the Trump administration. And then we had Chuck Schumer talk about, why the Democratic Party is in so much of a disarray because him voting against the bill after he led his party to believe that he would vote for the bill. So he wants to seem like they're in unison. There is an interview by MSNBC that Hakeem Jeffries was on, and he's actually talking about the differences him and Chuck Schumer had. So I thought that was interesting because I said to myself, they must have not watched each other's interview or did it at two different times. So Bill is talking about why the Democrats need a messaging czar, why they are hurting so badly, why the term, I think it was James Carville who brought this up, that the reason why the Democratic Party lost so badly was because of wokeness. I don't totally disagree with him on that. Again, just like DEI, things can be taken to a certain point where it's no longer seemingly pure or trying to be pure, but now toxic. And I think that wokeness was also one of those things, along with DEI. So let's take a look at what Bill Maher has to say here about the Democrats needing a messaging czar.
And finally, new rule Democrats who 1 year from now will be licking their wounds and asking themselves how they could have lost the midterms so badly.
I thought this was hilarious when Bill played this part in his show. It literally says, I'm going to read this to you guys, the Washington Post. Democrats are on course to lose in 2022 and 2024. Democrats, the New York Times, Democrats shouldn't panic. They should go into shock. The Atlantic, what Democrats need to realize before 2022. The New York Times, reeling from surprise loses. Democrats sound the alarm for 2022. I think this is hilarious. How 3 and 2 years ago, you had mainstream media telling the Democrats, hey, you guys should wake up. You guys should wake up. And they didn't even pay attention to this stuff. I guess they thought it wasn't going to happen.
Must instead ask themselves that question now. Now. While there's still time to do something about it. A couple of weeks ago, Amy Klobuchar was here, and when I suggested the Democrats need a messaging czar, she offered me the job. Well, you need a messaging czar in your party.
It should be you.
Amy, I'm flattered. But after careful consideration, I must decline. The hours it would take me away from home would make it very difficult on my family. might once again break out my coach hat and try to point the Democrats in the right direction. That's all I can do. Point you in the right direction. I'm like Deep Throat. Because the way this party is running for office is making me gag.
He's so inappropriate sometimes. I want to say this though, Bill. I think you should get a MAGA hat. I think he should get a MAGA hat. I think on the days where the Democrats piss him off the most or act the craziest, he should wear a MAGA hat. And the days where Trump just sends him through the roof, he should put on the Democratic hat. I would just appreciate the switch.
I know liberals think this country is full of dumb white people, but in our democracy, dumb white people make up a substantial portion of the vote. A median voter is a white person in their 50s who didn't go to college, their favorite TV show is NCIS, and their pronouns are what? I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, and get away from me. In 2008, Republicans only won 4 Virginia counties by more than 70%. This month, in the governor's election there, they did it in 45 counties.
Jeez.
And this is what a lot of Democrats were told was the reason for that. Glenn Youngkin's win proves white ignorance is a power.
From 4 to 45, that's crazy. It says, real clear politics. Youngkin's win proves white ignorance is powerful weapon.
A weapon. Racism still works in Virginia. It's not the messaging, folks. This country's
Racism still works in Virginia. It's not the messaging, folks. This country simply loves white supremacy. Oh my goodness. The Lord.
This country simply still loves white supremacy. Well, I haven't worked up an official Democratic campaign slogan for 2024 yet, but I tell you what I have ruled out is vote Democrat because white people suck. It's like trying to get laid by saying, you're ugly, you want to dance? You're alienating a whole lot of people, particularly whites without a college degree, which is most of them in a country that's still 70% white. I'd say do the math, but math is a form of white supremacy. Yes, I know every fiber of your being tells you the people you really want to reach are Guatemalan teenagers and bloggers in Gaza, but they can't vote. So a lot of folks in America you come across as the cares about everybody but me party. And it doesn't have to be that way. You can find ways to stand up for these folks without being David Duke. This month, when the Democrats finally passed their big $1 trillion bill to rebuild our roads and bridges, 6 Democrats voted no because it didn't go far enough to address climate change, which I'm sure is true. What does? But
bro, I think that's Miss Lee, AOC, Omar, Elian. Yeah, I'm like, all of them are pretty. I would say these Democrats right here would be, some people consider these the pretty far leftists, and some of them are missing.
But this was free money from the federal government that would actually improve their constituents' lives. I can see a voter saying, you know, squad, I agree with you on climate change. But as long as it is happening, we also need money for getting the water pumped out of the subway. Can we do that before we build the workers' paradise? One of the first things Biden did in office was getting through a COVID relief package that sent $1,400 to, well, everybody, without a single Republican vote. And today, Trump is leading him in the polls. You can give the people all the goodies Joe Manchin will allow, and it doesn't seem to buy their love. Why? Why is the party that supports so many issues that benefit the middle class still considered out of touch by 62% of Americans? In plain English, nobody likes a snob. Hillary Clinton didn't have anyone on rural research or outreach when she ran in 2016 until the race tightened just before the election. Then they hired one. And where was his office? Brooklyn. True story. Politics is local, not locally sourced. It's not artisan. It's art and Stan.
He's so funny.
Your microaggression culture doesn't play in the Rust Belt. If a staffer hands you a speech that says menstruating people instead of women, don't say that. Say women.
Right. Menstruating people. Oh my goodness, man. Oh, guys, this is the stuff that just drives me crazy. Really, though? Menstruating people. I'm curious to know how many men menstruate. I'm curious to know. Oh my goodness, menstruating people. How many guys out there have a period? Tell me. I'm curious.
Don't put anyone fresh out of college in charge of the campaign. They've been given participation trophies their whole life. They don't know how to win. James Carville knew how to win. And he blamed the Democratic losses this November 2nd on stupid wokeness. To which AOC fired back that wokeness is a term almost exclusively used by older people these days. So that should tell you all you need to know. What? This is a term folks like you brought out very recently and have been...
He's passionate about this. You heard his voice crack? He's passionate now.
and have been proudly displaying it every March since. Just last year, The Guardian declared woke the word of our era. I guess they didn't get the memo from the Mean Girls Club. We don't use that emoji anymore. Woke, please. We say fetch now. What a great strategy, never missing an opportunity to remind voters how lame and clueless and hopelessly uncool they are, especially since those are the ones who actually vote. But okay, fine. What word would you like us to use for the plainly insane excesses of the left that are not liberalism, but something completely different? Because you can't have that word liberal from us and think it should cover things like canceling Lincoln and teaching third graders their oppressors. That's all your new thing. A more pertinent question to ask about the word woke might be, why in such a short time has it gone from a rallying cry to a pejorative? If the word only made you think...
There's a lady here holding a shirt that says, stay woke, check vote.
...of rational, deserved causes like teaching a less whitewashed version of American history, AOC would still want to own it. But it's a joke, because it makes you think of people who wake up offended and take orders from Twitter, and their oversensitivity has grown tiresome. That said, I would love to have AOC on this show. There's so much to admire there. I was one of her first supporters for the Green New Deal idea. But that will probably never happen, because Democrats don't go anywhere these days where they're not pre-adored. And that's my last bit of advice to them. Go where the amen corner isn't. Do Fox News. Be brave. Come here. Go everywhere. Winning is about expanding the electorate.
So I wanted to react to that because that's actually an older clip by Bill Maher, but here's why I thought it was hilarious. Because he talked like this 3 years ago, and no one on the left paid him any mind. No Democrats listened to him. No liberals listened to him. Clearly, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris didn't consult with him. This is 3 years ago that Bill Maher did this. And I literally just wanted to put it up there because there were so many warnings. So many people, even people that were on their side, were saying, hey, Democrats, we need to wake up. Hey, we need to figure this out. We need to do something about this. And no one changed anything. And 2025 rolled in and they lost everything. And this is where I'm saying maybe this time around, right? President Trump has only been in office almost a couple of days, shy of 90 days. Maybe this time around, they'll listen. Maybe this time around, they'll prepare. Who knows? Let's see. So, guys, with that being said, we are at the final stage of the live. We are at our last clip, which is a clip from Cliff. Shout out to you, Cliff Buell. This is a guy on YouTube that I admire very much because I think he does great with his content for people who are curious about Jesus. Cliff delivers it in the form of YouTube shorts, but it looks like recently he's actually been doing lives again and probably videos. So you guys go check out Cliff's channel when you get a chance. That's Cliff Buell, Buell. So go check him out. Cliff is a Christian like myself, and he likes to spread the gospel and the word of Jesus on YouTube, and I think he does a great job at doing it. So every single night, every single day except Sunday, we end our live with a clip from Cliff, and let's see what Cliff's talking about today. Are you headed to heaven or hell? That is a question to think about because we're all going to one spot. He says they don't allow them to say Jesus here. So let's take a look at this clip here.
He almost signed to Polo G's record label, which in the dotted lines told him he was not allowed to say the name Jesus.
Okay, so this is a rapper. Who is it? He said Polo?
He almost signed to Polo G's record label.
Oh, so Polo G's record label. That's what he's talking about. Polo G's record label.
He almost signed to Polo G's record label, which in the dotted lines told him he was not allowed to say the name Jesus. Listen to this.
You literally almost signed to Polo G's record label.
I heard millions in it. I was just planning on going there and signing it. But I'm with my old cameraman at the time.
Are you in the world this time?
Yeah, I was in the world. Yeah, it's secular music. It's not even Christian music, not even a thought about Christian. I'm there, I'm looking through the deal, I'm just scanning through it. So then my homeboy grabbed it. He's like, oh, let me just, before you sign, bro, let me just look real quick, bro. It's like he knew where the page was. So he was just flipping, bro. He's like, stop. He's like, bro, you didn't read this? I said, read what? The thing said, you cannot say the name Jesus. It didn't say God.
Wow.
It said, you cannot say the name Jesus. I forgot what else. It said, it's like, it was like a threat in there. So they'll basically say, like, they know your family, wherever they live at. That's in those, like, dotted lines that we will not read. But it's literally them saying, like, if you say the name Jesus, you're gonna die. Or something will happen to you.
He almost signed to Polo G's record label, which in the dotted lines told him he was not allowed to say the name Jesus. Listen to this.
You literally almost signed to Polo G's record label.
I heard millions in it. I was just planning on going there and signing it. But I'm with my old cameraman at the time.
Are you in the world this time?
Yeah, I was in the world. Yeah, it's secular music. It's not even Christian music, not even a thought about Christian. I'm there, I'm looking through the deal, I'm just scanning through it. So then my homeboy grabbed it. He's like, oh, let me just, before you sign, bro, let me just look real quick, bro. It's like he knew where the page was. So he was just flipping, bro. He's like, stop. He's like, bro, you didn't read this? I said, read what? The thing said, you cannot say the name Jesus. It didn't say God.
Wow.
It said, you cannot say the name Jesus. I forgot what else. It said, it's like, it was like a threat in there. So they'll basically say, like, they know your family, wherever they live at. That's in those, like, dotted lines that we will not read. But it's literally them saying, like, if you say the name Jesus, you're gonna die. Or something will happen to you.
He almost signed.
Well, I played that twice because I wanted you guys to hear it. If you ever get the chance later on today or later on tomorrow, if you want to go back, you can always come in the lives, go to the end, and you'll see the Christian clip that I used that day. I think it's interesting. So he almost signed a Polo G's label, and he's going through the contract. He says, I was just going to go there and sign it. Of course, he's thinking about the money. And he's with his old cameraman, and his old camera says, hey, bro, let me look at it real quick before you sign it. And he said, it's like my cameraman knew where the page was at. And he said, did you read this? And he's like, no, what is it? And it says, like, you cannot say the name Jesus. I love when things like this happen because as Christians, oftentimes we get offered things that put our faith on the spot. If not offered things, get put in positions. And this has happened to me quite a few times. Now, there's been times where I was put in a position and I had to make it was a forceful no. And it was a no because I am a Christian. And I wasn't ashamed to say that. But then there's also been other times where I've had to be a lot more quiet about it. And not that I did not say I was a Christian, I will still voice it. But I have to turn something down that maybe I really desire or I'm really interested in. I'm glad that Cliff used this clip because this is something that a lot of people, new Christians, old Christians, run into every single day. And it's like something comes across and it's something that you really, really want. And you're like, man, I've been waiting for this. This thing is finally happening. And then you have someone there that has a deeper relationship with Christ than you or more understanding than you, and they give you this piece of advice, a revelation, if you will, and you're like, oh man, like you're like a killjoy. Like I was excited and you're gonna tell me something like that. But yeah, because that's how God works. That's how he works in the life of a believer, and that's how he works in the life of people he is after. I thought this was a great clip. I really did. You know, for those of you out there that do say that you belong to Jesus Christ, If you ever find yourself in a position to where you have to stand up for your faith and it seems like it's hard for you, you're in good company. And there were times where certain people, I think that's my cat trying to come in. Yeah, I definitely see the pause. But there are certain times where you'll get put in positions where people are actually, sometimes they are testing you, and other times they're trying to see if you are going to stand up for yourself. And I would say just do it. There have been times where I was in a job interview. I remember being asked this question. I was in a panel interview. So for those of you that might not have experienced in a panel interview, you're usually in there with more than 2 to 3 people. At this point, I think I was in there with 4 to 5, and one of them asked me a question. We were well into the interview by this point, and we were almost wrapping up. And someone asked me the question, "How do you gauge your life? Right? Like, what do you use to gauge your life and how you live it?" And I got quiet for a moment, and I said, I said the first thing that came to me, and I said, "Okay, so you guys might not like or appreciate this answer, right? But currently I wasn't working for the company. So I said the way that I gauge my life is if I'm doing what God is asking me to do, if I'm being obedient to that." And I mean, the entire room was just still, just quiet. Now, for those of you guys that don't know me intimately, this is not a situation that I could be in and somebody like my wife would be shocked. She would probably just be smiling or laughing, because in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, well, I would really like to have this job, but if they don't hire me, especially based off of this, then this is not even where I'm supposed to come, so I don't care. And I was really just quiet until someone responded, and one of them just kind of came out of the quietness and was like, "I like that answer." And I was like, well, I'm glad, because I like the answer too. That was pretty much the end of it. But there have been times where I was around a lot of people who maybe they were Christian or they were private about it, and I have to pray for somebody, and like I'm in a room full of secular people that are having side conversations, and me and this person are just like right here praying, and it's like they're awkward sometimes, and if you don't have a lot of practice, you could be put in those situations and possibly say, what, nah, I'm not going to do that, right? I'm not, even though I feel like the Lord's telling me I'm not going to move on that, which early on, especially as a newer Christian, there would be times where I was like, not today, Lord, like ask me that tomorrow, so, and that's just me being transparent. So I appreciate Cliff using a situation like this, because it happens, it's so common, it's so much more common than you guys would think, especially when people make a final decision and they're like, like I'm going to start taking church seriously and I'm going to get close to Jesus, and then it's like that thing comes, whatever that thing is for you, it shows up knocking at the door, and sure enough, it's going to ask the question, can we play? So with that being said, guys, I appreciate you guys stopping by and chilling on the corner with me, where we learn about all the things: news, conservatism, religion, liberalism, what people think about different genders, anything. You guys know I'm not afraid to touch on any topic. I've had people ask me to talk about certain things. Nothing's off limits here on Cozy Corner. So if it's something you want me to react to, just put a comment in the chat. Send it to me in the About section of the YouTube tab, where you can get my email, and we'll take a look at it. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap up. It's been fun chilling with you guys. It always is. I appreciate you guys stopping by and chilling on the corner with me. Until next time, which is tomorrow, March 19th. Same time tomorrow, 4 p.m. No, I got on around 4:55 today. So yeah, tomorrow we'll be on around 4:30, 16:30 for my military people, and we'll be hanging out. So until next time, guys, be safe, take care of one another. What I always say, guys, take care of yourselves, take care of one another, love yourselves, and love one another, and be peaceful. Peace.